The last few weeks have been momentous for crypto. Today was no exception. It's not every day that the world's largest asset manager jumps into your space wholeheartedly. For better or worse, today was that day for crypto. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss the Blackrock Spot Bitcoin ETF application. Is it good? Is it bad? What is it? China seemingly going in a completely different direction from the US. The Blockchain Association with an interesting FOIA request related to the recent congressional hearing, and a little karma for a Cardano critic. If you can't tell if this is Cardano and crypto letting the mainstream into our party, or if this is the mainstream letting us in, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Today, we're going to talk about something that might either make you very excited or leave kind of a bitter taste in your mouth. So it turns out today was the day that BlackRock filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF. So in case you don't know, who is BlackRock? This is BlackRock. For those of you who are unfamiliar, BlackRock is an American multinational investment company based in New York City, founded in '88 by a whole bunch of people from First Boston, including Larry Fink, who is the chairman and CEO. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager with US 8.59 trillion, that's trillion with a T, in assets under management as of the end of last year. BlackRock is gigantic and they own everything. BlackRock has an ownership interest in almost everything that seems profitable. No surprise that BlackRock, who is also considered to be one of the big three index fund managers with its iShares group of exchange traded funds, is interested in crypto because, of course, crypto can be very profitable, at least in certain parts of the cycle. When we're in a bull market, lots of money can be made in crypto. So no surprise, the biggest asset manager in the entire world would be interested in crypto. And not that they haven't already dipped their toe in crypto. Like I said, they own everything, including some things in crypto already, but they're interested in something a little bit more. So there was a little bit of controversy today about whether or not what we're about to talk about is actually an ETF. And I think that's largely because when people hear the acronym ETF, they think of index funds, because a lot of the ETFs they might encounter are indeed index funds. But the ETF umbrella actually takes in multiple types of structures. So here again at Wikipedia, we find a nice definition. An exchange traded fund, ETF, is a type of investment fund and exchange traded product. That is, they are traded on stock exchange. ETFs are similar in many ways to mutual funds, except that ETFs are bought and sold from other owners throughout the day on stock exchanges, whereas mutual funds are bought and sold from the issuer based on their price at day's end. As with non-traded investment funds, an ETF can hold financial assets such as stocks, bonds, currencies, futures contracts, and or commodities such as gold bars. Most ETFs are index funds, that is, they hold the same securities in the same proportions as a certain stock market index or bond market index. But as you can see, ETFs can hold many types of financial assets such as stocks, bonds, currencies, future contracts, and or commodities such as gold bars, and in fact, cryptocurrencies. That's exactly what BlackRock wants to do right here through its iShares subsidiary. So they want to have an iShares Bitcoin Trust. And this is the actual Form S1 registration statement. You can find this in Edgar, the SEC Edgar system, where all of the filings with the SEC will show up. This one showed up just today. So this all happened just today. And the very first part of this registration statement gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on here. The iShares Bitcoin Trust is a Delaware statutory trust that issues shares representing fractional, undivided beneficial interests in its net assets. What are the assets? The assets of the trust consist primarily of Bitcoin held by a custodian on behalf of the trust. The trust seeks to reflect generally the performance of the price of Bitcoin. The trust seeks to reflect such performance before payment of the trust expenses and liabilities. So, who will the custodian be? In fact, the custodian will be Coinbase. So this has sparked a lot of discussion in the crypto space because what do a lot of people want in the crypto space? They want mainstream adoption. How might mainstream adoption come to us? Via the adoption of crypto by large Wall Street, TradFi, traditional finance entities. What do we hate in crypto? Large Wall Street TradFi entities. So it's kind of this catch-22. We want mainstream adoption. What's the most likely way we get mainstream adoption? Stuff like this, the largest asset manager in the world deciding to jump even more headfirst into crypto, to throw an application to the SEC for a spot Bitcoin ETF. But this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers because what people really want is for more of a crypto native application for a spot Bitcoin ETF to be accepted. And we've tried many, many times. Many different entities in crypto have tried to get a spot Bitcoin ETF. I think most recently Grayscale, didn't Gemini try over and over again? And the SEC has said no, 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 no. Obviously, this only foreshadowed Operation Choke Point 2.0, which we've talked about ad nauseum on this channel. Now we see BlackRock doing this. This is not a Grayscale or a Gemini or any other comparatively tiny crypto native entity trying to get a spot Bitcoin ETF with the SEC. This is the largest asset manager in the world whose assets number in the trillions. This is a completely different type of player. This is the apex financial predator deciding it wants something. This is going to be pretty interesting because, as a lot of crypto lawyers have pointed out today on Twitter, the SEC is supposed to apply its regulations, standards, rules, the US's statutes equally, sort of no matter who's asking the question. But a lot of people are also predicting, can Gary Gensler also say no to BlackRock? This is going to be interesting because they've said no so many times to crypto native entities, and currently they're even involved in litigation with Grayscale over pretty much this exact issue. So can they now turn around and say yes to BlackRock? What happens with this litigation with Grayscale? Do they then have to issue Grayscale its own spot Bitcoin ETF, or approve a spot Bitcoin ETF from Grayscale? There's a lot of questions here. So it's people, of course, people are thinking, this is like what a lot of us in crypto have predicted for a long time, and that's that regulators would come in, crush crypto, and then let the TradFi players sort of pick up the pieces. Like the regulators would dismantle the crypto native crypto institutions, and then the TradFi players would just come in, pick up the pieces, and replace them, right? This is the kind of thing we sort of expect to happen, that the legacy players who already have all the power, they figure out how to get the regulators to crush an industry, and then they come in and they're like, oh, now we're going to do it, but we're going to do it right. And of course, that usually works because they're much more able to comply with the regulations. You crush the native players with the regulations because they're not really big enough to comply. And then these giant players come in and they're like, oh, we've got a compliance department of hundreds of people. We can easily comply with this, or thousands of people. We can easily comply with all this. And then all of a sudden you lose all the small native players, and you're just left with the same legacy Wall Street players that everybody hates and were part of the reason the whole ecosystem was developed in the first place. This is what everybody expects. But it's unclear whether that's what this is going to be, because you can make a good argument this is kind of a nightmare for Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler was obviously trying to crush crypto, But now he's got BlackRock, who is using a custodian, no less, that the SEC is currently suing, Coinbase. So this is kind of a muddled mess, and maybe that was BlackRock's intent. Maybe BlackRock looked at what was happening in the crypto space, and they said, I'm not going to assume they have any altruistic motives whatsoever. I don't think I don't think that's something I'm willing to say, but maybe we can say they looked at the crypto space and said, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in the crypto space. If there's anything we can do right now to, make it more difficult for the US regulators to basically train wreck the entire crypto space, let's go ahead and do that. Like, why don't we go ahead and file for a spot Bitcoin ETF right now? We've got a much bigger war chest to fight the SEC if they try to deny our registration. Maybe we should just go ahead and do that and, pitch in, not implying there's any altruistic motive on their part, but maybe they just see that a lot of money can be made in crypto because they're pretty much an entity like BlackRock. They're pretty much going to be making money wherever there's money to be made, and I think they probably see that there's a lot of money to be made in crypto over the next bull cycle, and maybe they're just like, hey, we could wait until all the dust settles, but maybe too much of crypto will be wrecked by then. Let's throw this application in right now and see if that kind of slows down this SEC wrecking ball that the whole crypto space is dealing with right now. Or who knows? Maybe they don't care about that at all, and they think they can just bully their way into a Bitcoin ETF where all of the Bitcoin all the crypto native entities haven't been able to so far. In either case, though, I kind of like that there's trouble brewing for Gary Gensler. He's going to have to decide, is this a yes or a no? And then we'll all be left sort of guessing. Was it sort of, the conspiracy-ish collusion a lot of people fear? Or is BlackRock just too big for the SEC to reject them? Either way, whether it's rejected, accepted, we'll probably never know. But I like that something's happening that might make it a little bit harder for the SEC to wreck everything in crypto as quickly as they might have been able to before. Don't get me wrong here. I don't want to see a gigantic traditional Wall Street player like BlackRock in crypto to this extent any more than you do. This is, of course, not my favorite thing. I would much prefer that crypto native entities be doing this kind of thing. But at the same time, I do love anything that messes with Operation Choke Point 2.0. And I get that you could make a very valid argument that maybe this is a part of Operation Choke Point 2.0. Maybe this is all in collusion with the Gary Genslers and the Janet Yellens and the dragons of the world. Maybe they all had this all planned out. Maybe it's all lockstep and this is all just part of the plan. I understand all of those arguments. But at the same time, no matter where you fall on that whole spectrum, from the most tinfoil conspiracy to the least, there's another thing. If we're going to go mainstream, if crypto's going to go mainstream, this kind of thing probably has to happen. We can't really go mainstream unless all of the people who will never touch the crypto native stuff, who are all about the TradFi stuff, there are whole demographics who have no interest in anything crypto native. They're not going to go on even the most corporate of centralized exchanges because that's just not a part of their world. Their financial world is all tied up in the traditional stuff, the stuff that an entity like BlackRock can connect to. We want people to be able to have crypto in their retirement accounts. This is a huge number of investors who just have retirement accounts and they'll never actually buy any financial assets other than maybe some real estate, their house, their home. They might buy their home and they might have a retirement account, and that's the extent of their financial life, really. We need to reach those people, and maybe someday we reach this utopia level where, everybody is using the crypto native stuff. But man, it sure seems like this could be a big shortcut to pull the mainstream into crypto. And maybe most importantly, true crypto must be permissionless. It absolutely must be permissionless. And we've already said that BlackRock is going to go wherever they can make money. That means it was always inevitable that BlackRock was going to try to capitalize on crypto in all the ways that are most profitable. Certainly, this spot Bitcoin ETF is one of those ways. So it was probably always inevitable because crypto is permissionless. It was always inevitable that we were going to see something like this. There was no way to avoid it and still be what we need to be, which is permissionless. Speaking of entities we may not be madly in love with, but may actually be doing things to help us, this next item is interesting. The Financial Times is reporting that Hong Kong regulators, who of course are now controlled by the CCP, Hong Kong regulators are pressuring banks to onboard crypto companies. So, Financial Times is reporting that HSBC and Standard Chartered have been pressed by Hong Kong regulators to take on crypto clients. Regulators are pushing for banks to accept more exchanges as clients in quest to develop digital assets industry. Very interesting as the Biden administration attacks crypto in every way it can, attempts to take away all of the fiat on ramps and off ramps. While the Biden administration is busy doing that, what do we see in Hong Kong? We see banks being pressured to actually take on more crypto clients. This is very interesting. I mean, this just kind of validates what the crypto people have been saying about Operation Choke Point 2.0 all this time. If you do this, it's going to have no effect on crypto outside of the US, except to make it bigger outside of the US, and the US will just get left behind. So this is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see if the Biden administration reacts to this, if this is sort of a wake up call, if they see, hey, all of crypto may just migrate to places like Hong Kong because businesses are like people. They tend to go where they are treated best. And this certainly looks a lot better than what's happening in the US. And who knows? Maybe this is linked. Maybe this is linked to Janet Yellen's sudden about face, her sort of 180 she recently did, where she said, "Oh, wait, actually, the recommendation of the Financial Stability Oversight Committee from a year ago to adopt a new, you know, um, regulatory framework for crypto, maybe that was the best thing all along." I still stand by that. Maybe her about face on that, not that we could establish that she ever definitively moved away from it, but she certainly wasn't talking like that a little while ago. But maybe this about face is related to this. Maybe they saw this and they realized, oh, wow, all of crypto can just go places like Hong Kong. Maybe the crypto people are telling the truth. Maybe we really will get left behind. This is interesting. The Blockchain Association has sent a Freedom of Information Act request to the SEC seeking documents related to its dealings with Prometheum. Prometheum, of course, is the entity we talked about yesterday, the entity of the witness who was sort of the pro SEC witness in the hearings in the House this week, who kept saying over and over again that we don't need any new regulatory framework. We don't need new legislation out of Congress. They should basically just let the SEC crush all of crypto. So we're going to find out exactly what's gone on between the SEC and Prometheum up to this point. Finally, you might remember this Cardano critic, this guy down here in the bottom right, who said that Cardano was an academic experiment and that it was a PhD graveyard. He had some kind of lukewarm, nice things to say about Cardano too, but he definitely called Cardano a PhD graveyard. It turns out that today, Cardano's not the one with one foot in the grave. This article came out today on CoinDesk. It says crypto lender Abra has been insolvent since at least March 31st, state securities regulators alleged on Thursday. And in an emergency cease and desist order, the Texas State Securities Board alleged that Abra, otherwise known as Plutus Financial, Abra Boost, Plutus Lending, and Abra founder William Barhide misled the public, committed securities fraud, and the company has been insolvent for months. Barhide didn't immediately return a request for comment. So sad to hear that. Mr. Cardano is a PhD graveyard. It seems that your entity is much further into the grave than Cardano is, as Cardano thrives in June of 2023. I hope you had a great week. I hope you're doing fun summer things. If it's summertime where you are, I hope you're doing fun summer things this weekend, and I will talk to you soon.